Guys, thank you for joining me. I'm super excited to be having this interview with you guys. As you know, I've spent a couple days at your farm, which has been amazing. It's been amazing to get out of the city and get outside. It's been a hard time for us to be shut down here in Berlin. But before we start, I want to ask you to do a little bit of an overview of who you are and what you do in Berlin.
We are Tom and Nadine from the Michelberger Hotel. We opened this hotel in 2009 and started very small with a small team. Now we are expanding over this last 11 years now, and we have a restaurant, we have event rooms, we have a farm. Since end of 2018 we did a lot of events, music related, but building community was something which drove us actually from the first moment. And yeah, this is where we are. We have coconut water in the same time in between, but what's to add?
Here we are.
Okay, well, I have a question for you because it's something I've always wanted to know. So what made you start the hotel in the first place? Like, what drove your inspiration to actually, because at the time, 2009, Berlin was, I mean, let's face it, it was not even an emerging city. I mean, it was a struggling city. It was a creative and an artist city. But what made you think, let's become hoteliers?
It was very much a big part of it. There were so many spaces available, and you were just wondering what to do with all of these spaces. And when we came you at the end of the 90s, me early 2000s, we would say until 2006, it was a very, very special, in a way, to the outside sleepy, but internally very vibrant, small little city. And yeah, the idea just really came with the spaces. If you would have a space, if you would occupy a space, what would you do with it? And
first thought was, okay, if we would have that space, how do we occupy it? Let's have friends moving there, let's work there, let's have it as a platform. And then somebody at a dinner table said, yeah, why don't you do a hotel? And then this idea just made totally sense the further we dove into and explored these options and looked how it would fit into these beautiful big architectural buildings that we are in right now as well.
Yeah, and it just kind of connected, the idea of a hotel connected a lot of things, our entrepreneurial base setup and our wish to just not complain, just to have a space to curate, to create, and be kind of our own, have a space where we can do how we think it could be done. And the hotel was just a product or an option that made so much sense because it was physical. You had every day so many new people. There are different elements involved, and it's a home base for a lot of people to work in. And that's what happened. And in terms of the crisis, it is interesting. There are parallels, and I think Berlin is benefiting hopefully right now equally on the base of what the foundation was laid in in the 90s and in the 2000s, because the spaces are still there. There are still a lot of independent businesses. The dependency on money is not as heavy as maybe in other capitals. So hopefully we are somewhat crisis resistant and are able to build more from here. So in a way, it is an interesting thing that now we're kind of going on some levels back to the initial roots why we created this hotel. And now we see the opportunity to become even more of a platform for all of these ideas that are now important to be discussed.
One of the things I think it's important to let people understand, or that people do understand, is the spirit of Berlin. And so it's one of the reasons why many of us are attracted to this place, this city. But it's more about the physical. It's less about the physical. It's more about the ideas that are created within the constructs of the physical. So you're both Berliners?
From day one.
Yeah, on the one hand, yes. On the other hand, I'm coming from a farm very far in North Rhine-Westphalia. It's Münsterland. Nobody knows, but it's countryside. We're working-oriented, honest people.
Fair enough. But so can you actually give us, in your words, like summarize what it means to be in Berlin, or what the spirit of Berlin is?
Time to allow yourself to expand, to explore. There's less judgment on things, what you do. When we came, everybody did more or less nothing and everything. And this time vacuum that was actually here and provided this opportunity to think like us coming from farm or South Germany somewhere, to think of such big thing as a hotel. And this creative spirit and this opportunities laying around without pressure even, and just out of joy trying out and doing something out of little is something that gives just energy to transfer into projects and ideas.
And the main ingredient that Berlin gave me, and I think us and a lot of other people, is time. And in that sense, the virus now gave us time. Berlin gave us time to just not be stuck in this. I come from southern Germany, where just, you know, you take the path either of your parents or what kind of education drives you into. But in Berlin, it really, what struck me the most on the first day I came here was that no one cared where you come from, what you do. Everyone was just sitting around, or you're doing sports together, or you're going out at night together. It was not, you didn't need to define yourself of what you do in your daily life, because in a way someone knew. Most people don't do anything anyways and are kind of just here because they didn't belong anywhere else. And that was for a very long time, I think, that laid the spirit that is still felt in the city, even currently.
Germany, Berlin, no stranger to crisis by any means. But this one, the reach, the impact, the suddenness of it was a bit surreal. So can you walk us through what your take on it was, where your headspace was, what you were thinking? Like, we're going back 8 weeks now, and how you pivoted really quickly, because I believe you did. I think it was a bit heart-wrenching, but at the same time, I think that you galvanized yourselves and your team to actually act in the best way possible.
So we never really felt overrun. We felt like shocked, and it was like we were very much, I mean, it forced you in the moment, like right away. But yeah, it just felt like we were kind of just 24 hours early enough to collect the team, to make them aware, okay, this is real, this is like happening, and just bringing down everything from 100% to 0% within 7 days. In that sense, we just kind of functioned at that point in time. And then we were quarantined ourselves for a week because we had contact with someone, but we were fine. But that gave us like a week to breathe. So it took us 2-3 weeks to bring the hotel down, to manage the situation, and to get the team on board. And it was just crazy to see how everyone just was very practical in that moment. So I think that was the easy step. The challenging steps were the last couple of weeks, to kind of go from zero to bring people back, and to create a vision of what this could be, to be proactive, to kind of, with having no clarity and like quite intransparent decision making on a political landscape, to still try to be active, because with an independent entrepreneurial vibe, this is like, you need something to work with. So that was the last weeks were more challenging than the initial 3 weeks, I would say.
Situation that we were living in the hotel, to also keep the cost down, that we were kind of fallen back into the situation of greeting the few guests who came and dealing with the little team which was there to make the croissants in the morning and to check in. It gave us well opportunity to really get back in touch with every little detail of this whole house. And obviously that inspired new thoughts for cleaning, for reorganizing, and for seeing like how much this whole house was really like as a big running ship, moving every day. And that there was also coming to the surface that we, although in the next transition period of coming somewhat back to somewhat of an occupancy, we also have to learn from this very much, like how do we structure us in the future to allow these beautiful things that also came out of this period to translate into our daily operation from now on. And in this period, a lot of things, insights that came up to us, but also in terms of that we could really see clearly what is now needed for, if we think of change and that whole opportunity that is coming to the surface, how do we create that change now, and what are the right thoughts to do, and how do we mingle this and start with us, then the team, and how does our hotel look like after, including the farm, including all our different entrepreneurs products we have.
Give us a little bit of insight in terms of what you're thinking into the future. It sounds like you've got some inspiring ideas. I love the idea of going back to brass tacks, as we would say, which is really, you know, figuring out for yourselves, living in the hotel. I mean, where do you imagine? What are some of the things that have inspired you?
In a sense, this is like a shortcut to the things we wanted to evolve the hotel to. And it, in a good way, we could really use our space to just help formulate what is next on a, you know, to us, it just feels like, you know, the world is like, has such a, I mean, gains in complexity more and more. And we don't really have the global structures in place to kind of handle the complexity. And I think this is what we're feeling right now. So in a way, this whole situation, me or us as entrepreneurs and people just kind of became clear, okay, we can't wait in any scenario for other people to formulate new ways. So it's like, it's up to, you know, no one is smarter and no one is more educated. I mean, everyone has different talents, but even, you know, on a political scale, or the answers are not necessarily in the old ways. The old structures are very much in place and they will kind of reboot everything because it kind of has to. But we feel there is a really big opportunity to move important topics forward, but they can only be moved forward if we somehow collectively organize us in smaller units, in bigger units, give impulses, become more educated citizens ourselves, you know, work on our immune system, work on our, then in consequence on the global immune system. So in a way, to us, this have made it, to me, it made it in a positive way very urgent. And the question, are we ready to take bigger steps right now? Because what you, and that kind of is a little bit what Berlin gave you. You were really, in the early days, allowed to have big ideas. And it feels to me right now as well that the ideas cannot be thought big enough. And it feels like all of the things, all of the alternative ways, all of the ideas in the drawers are now, it's now time to take them out and try to bring them on the road and try to make them work.
Because also we really feel there is so much solution there already and built from all these experts, all these people who are dealing with a lot of things since many decades. Now there is an openness there globally, collectively, that these answers can come up in order to be then manifested in solutions and in long-term thinking. And practically, when you ask like, what is our ideas for now, we just think that there's, of course, now people are able on next Friday to go back to restaurants, and anyways, Berlin people are out and about and not so much restricted as they were in the rest of the world maybe. But we feel there will be at some point a wish for reflection, what was happening. There will be questions. And we would like to provide opportunities for answers. And therefore we composed kind of a program that we would like to implement here in the hotel for our guests, that it's practical, including all the stuff that we used as tools for us to grow and to learn. So it is a package of yoga, of good food, of meditation, of conversations at night with all the, it's like under lift off, so that people have a big opportunity to just get in touch with these answers and come here in this humble and accessible space to have contact with people who have something to share. And that gives us the ways to learn more out of this and reflect and to do better choices in the future. And yes, maybe this evolves into a big network worldwide, because obviously nobody is having fears anymore of online conversation as we have them right now. That's a good step, so we can connect globally and not have everybody physically here. But this is something which we implement in the second we have the doors open to guests again.
I think that kind of extended programming, which is just supplementing what you currently do and fits within your ethos, is so wonderful. I want to talk a little bit about the Berlin Culinary Collective that you've started. This is also an idea based around community collaboration and advocacy. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that initiative and why you began that work?
It became, in a way, clear that social spaces and food, you know, that's stuff you miss. That's that's things that are kind of important to our existence. And it's on a culinary landscape in Berlin, we haven't really connected to a big extent to other gastronomy people, because everyone equally to us, everyone was in the loop. Everyone was like, every day it's like full hands-on work. And now it's just kind of, the time is there. What can we do with it? How can we reach out? And how can we, of course, initially respect that everyone kind of needs a way to survive, and hopefully many do. But we've just felt lucky enough because we had a successful business running. We were able to get loans, unlike a lot of other people. So we felt the responsibility to also just think proactively of what can we do. And the first thing is, okay, let's come together, let's sit together. And so we met with people we knew. We kind of shared initial ideas, and then we're just kind of seeing what can we do to increase the awareness of the importance of quality food and what it means to serve people. And when at the same time, people are already, like, car factories are open and people are discussing to give people tax money to buy new cars. It's just absurd out of a perspective that farming, agriculture, serving people, and gastronomy are just so at the base of making the social, not just the social structure work, but also connecting people to food and to the nutrients and to the requirement of good food to boost your immune system and to be ready for this and to have appreciation for the things that we really need in order to live a good life. And that's not a car.
In this process, you have to imagine that we, in the first initiative, because it was weeks ago, that it was kind of, hey, can we meet and exchange? And so we just started to meet here in the hotel or in other places to exchange. How do you feel? How is it? Does it have anybody other information than you? And during that process of coming together every Tuesday and sharing, it was clear that kind of we share more or less the same values, although there's many different gastronomies or hotels including this group. But in the end, we feel there is so much which we should bring to the surface. There's so much beautiful work, and in the end also a huge big employee situation. We were then figuring, the car industry was a great example. There's so much lobby for it, and we figured there's nothing like this here. There's an old institute like the Hoga that tries to now really find their foot into the door to represent our business, our branch. But they needed to have information, and we gave them, and they were kind of also a partner. But we saw we have 2.4 million people working in that business in whole Germany. And so we really want to bring that to the surface and to all the appreciation that is that should go to these professions.
One of the things I worry about is that we're advocating for the whole system as opposed to really drilling down into the restaurants that we believe care and are sustainable. I worry about propping up cheap chains that are still suckling on an industrial system. So how do you choose and how do you ensure that actually the advocacy is going towards the restaurants that we want to see, that are mostly also, as you spoke about earlier, driving the community forward as well?
What we can do, or what we feel like is important to do, just to connect with the public and increase the awareness of how important your food decisions are. And I think any change just needs to come from the people. It won't come from above. So what can we do to support that people make more aware choices? I mean, and no one should be put down if he eats French fries in an imbiss. But be aware of the decision and be aware of the consequences, and then do what's right for you. I mean, there is no right or wrong, but all you can be an informed and aware citizen, and then you make your decisions. And I think this is what we can do, just to show
this information and transparency is something really, and talk positively about it. It's not about complaining or putting someone else down in order to put us up. Everybody does what they do, and everybody is on their different, you are where you are, but how you continue going forward is just something what needs awareness now from each individual.
You guys have always run your business, as far as I could see, with ethics first, sustainability first, sort of capitalism in the background. Do you think that's a natural thing that is driven by sort of a Berlin culture? Or is it really something you have to fight to maintain? Because I mean, you could just become big boutique hotel owners and open up 6 other hotels in Berlin if you wanted.
Decision we made actually very early on that this would not be our path, that we really knew that we focus on one to make it really great, and still we are on the path and never will be finished with something. And yeah, maybe there's, if you ask in Berlin, I think there's more people who have a different mindset, that not the profit is the profit maximization is the first thing, but this can't be enough in these times to put on the forefront and just give a good example for others to follow that path, that prosperity is not, can come along with much better values and satisfaction in the team, and a surrounding that is joyful and respectful in all directions.
Yeah, I think more consumption will not do it. It's like we need less consumption. You know, we need more enlightened decisions.
I want to talk a little bit about the farm, because that's something that you invested in last year. It's a real inspiration for the future, and planting a seed literally of something that's going to have a real legacy. Again, tell us a little bit about why you invested in that and what you hope to see.
I worked on a project for a few years in Portugal because we felt like we need something, we need to relate to nature again. We need a connection.
It was already in 2015 when we started looking.
And that kind of dragged on and didn't work. And then at some point it just felt, it was a very spontaneous, I mean, the idea of having a land and supplying our restaurant with food and, you know, was introduced by actually Julian, who's now running the farm already like probably 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. So, and then, you know, periodically this thought comes up and we just checked and looked and then drove around, and the third farm we looked at, we knew this is it. And so, you know, ideas are in the air for a while until you connect with them in the right time. And that's the case. So it's our connection to nature, to the soil. And at the same time, we just met people who, you know, who introduced us to these old new concepts, bringing old wisdom of agriculture kind of together in a modern way to try to make it work on small spaces. And so now we just treat the restaurant or our hotel like a little village, and we try to supply it with as much as possible produce, because in a way, I mean, we are a little village, and now it just feels like everyone should have that kind of communal garden in their village organized.
Yeah, and on the other hand, it's somehow also full circle, because I come from a farm and I was more in contact with the conventional way of farming through all this history of the agriculture and farming in Germany, especially in the 80s and 90s. And my parents also tried to find a way around the stuff, but they would never go, this was not an idea in their head to go organic farming or something. This was not, but, and so I would have never thought that at some point we come back to farming in our professions. And so until we had this hotel and saw the importance after so many years, when we first started to put every products we had into organic, in these times nobody could supply it really, and there was no farmers delivering directly to restaurants or hotels. And that was something where we got much more in contact with this again, and how important that is of an aspect through everything. You cannot exclude nature and the food and everything you eat and serve in a hotel frame. And so at some point in our personal growth and in the growth of the hotel, it just made really was the next logical step.
Beautiful farm, and I'm so glad that you guys have it, because I do really think it's going to be the jewel in your community. One of the last things I want to touch on and ask, as you noted before, Nadine, this has been a moment of real reflection for most of us, and I think it's been a great opportunity for a pause so that we can think forward to the future. What would you say in terms of what you want to carry forward, a message that you want to give to your fellow Berliners in your hospitality community of how to best move forward and hold on to that inspiration?
And using the opportunity that everything of these last 2 months came out like a magnifying glass, all the bad things that not so nice and all the really beautiful things, and the power of connecting, the power of cooperation, and that we had a vacuum that we could use and we did use, and that we really go on with this, and not only in our entrepreneurial round that we formed now, that we really expand and have this as an example for many communities, and that we have all people coming and get in touch with these things, and that we together build this new future, and appreciating everything what was, but really being eager for the next, without fear, just with positive and constructive ways and paths.
Making local structures work, because I mean, we don't know yet like the full consequences of all of this. So, you know, there might be on the forehand, it looks like a bad consequence, but maybe, you know, maybe consumption habits automatically change because people just halted. I mean, who is thinking about buying a car right now? You know, so I wonder what maybe we will have struggling big global old industries or systems, and maybe we need for a while to rely. Maybe this is the rejuvenation of like the local infrastructures, and just to work with less and to be able to organize ourselves. So that's our hope, and I think maybe this is in the long run will be the good outcome out of all of this, that we learn again to interconnect locally.
Such a powerful message. One of my biggest fears is that we do go back to normal. I'm hoping that the new normal is actually with this reflection on how we can motivate ourselves to actually create a better world for the future. You guys are stalwarts of the community. You've done an amazing job in terms of reaching out and always being there as a foundation. So I commend you. I think that the work you do is so powerful and so wonderful. So thank you so much for talking to me today. I really appreciate the interview.
Thank
Glad
you.
that you're back in your home.
And see you at the farm, hopefully soon.
Or here,
Absolutely.
at the dinner table again.
Absolutely. All right, guys, take care. Thank you so much, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks,
Bye
Arlene.
bye. Cheers.
Bye.